Hello, welcome to Lackluster Reactions. I'm your Lackluster Reactor, here today for my final thoughts on Ishura Season 2. Finally. So, getting started, let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. Passione, I love you. You make great shows, but I did not enjoy Season 2 of Ishura. At all. I'm sure that came through on my videos as well, but there was so little about what happened this season to keep me interested. Season 1 we had introductions, then halfway through the season we started having battles. Many of our characters died, and in the end we ended with a pretty decent twist that was the point. That all of this was designed to get potentially dangerous creatures to fight to the death. And in the end, I was the first to say the show was overall lackluster, but the final twist was enough of a hook to make one excited for the second season, where the tournament was going to happen. Well, Season 2 just ended right before the tournament happened. We did not have any large battles between Axel and Shulk except the Particle Storm episodes, which resulted in 0 important characters dying. All of the episodes were introductions, which, hey, I like many if not all of our fighters, and I enjoy when we do get the brief screens of class, ancestry, name of the character. But many of the introductions needed just a little more spice. And to have the entire season be introductions without payoff is the blandest of meals. This comes from a person who looks at lackluster movies and gives them a neutral rating, while the internet makes a meme of talking down on them. I loved the second Joker movie and all of its themes. Ishura Season 2 gave me nothing. Let me just cap this off with bringing in a character. We know I am examining this by characters. That's pretty much how I do things at this point, but let's just get one out of the way here because they are not actually a character. The true Demon Lord. The last episode hyped us up for learning about her. We learn she is a visitor from another world. We learn she apparently has no powers. Despite this, she apparently causes calamity in her own world and radiates an unexpected aura of fear which drives everyone who lives around her crazy. Then, we get nothing. No payoff in the flashbacks, no explanation of where the fear came from. After 9 minutes, half of which is introducing a party raiding her castle, we just go back to the other Ishura, doing very little to end off the season. So no, not good at all. Season 3 should be better with us actually getting into the tournament, but until then the show is a poster child of wasted potential. But now on to the meat of the review. As per usual, we will be focusing on characters. However, unlike the first season review, we did not have any standout side characters except one who gets their own section. And the members of the council did nothing except recruit people to the tournament, so it's just going to be the Ishuras this time round. Starting with Mele, the Horizons Roar. So, quick introduction. Mele is a giant who lives on the edge of a small village, who receives his invitation for the tournament before the first scene. So all we have of him are to start our children coming to visit him in the forest of Iron Pillars. But over the episode we get two important things about him. First, his strength. We see him fight twice. The first, he took out a flood heading to the town and launched arrows at just the right positions to divert it. Second, the particle storm, he was given a general location from eyes unseen, and from that alone was able to strike down one of the scariest enemies faced thus far. But on the other hand, we see him interacting with the children, showing his kindness. Heck, we see him sit up with one of the children, comforting one who is dying from illness, showing no signs of sorrow or fear as he allowed the girl to die in peace with her friends. Overall, I cannot tell you which is stronger, the Mele's heart or his bone. So, all in all, Mele is not one of my favorite among the new Ishura. The competition was just that tough, but he is certainly a strong start at the beginning of the season. For better or worse, Mele set the tone of a cool person given a moment to do cool things, but was only given so much development because of the way this show is paced. But Mele took advantage of every second he was given, and I'm looking forward to seeing the man fight. But the first episode also gave us an introduction to my favorite Ishura, even if we did not get the full introduction until a few episodes later. In fact, we spent the first few episodes spending time with our detective and his favorite companion. It is, of course, Kuuro the Cautious. First up, what little we are given of Kuro's past is that he was once a former member of the Obsidian Eye. More information on them coming later in our examination, of course. However, after their original extermination, he went his own way and began working for the kingdom for several missions. But then he started losing his powers, and his powers of observation, of being able to see and hear better than anyone else, were all he believed he had. So he began wandering the kingdom, doing his best to hide his weakening while gathering information, taking on jobs to continue to show a strong front so none would ever consider him weak. Jobs which included the assassination of the particle storm. And all that time next to him was his loyal favorite companion Shune, the Wanderer. Do not know what the deal is with making a ship between a leprechaun and a homunculus who is somehow smaller than a leprechaun, but either way, Shune served as Kuro's eyes for a while, him putting trust in her when he could not even trust himself. And her being at his side gave him a place where he could claim to belong, even while walking the earth, even while fearing his worth was disappearing. But then the realization came of what was truly interfering with his powers. His powers knew he was going to die if he finished his mission, and the detective's subconscious was even smaller than his conscious, and so was limiting itself to try to keep him from fulfilling his mission. The problem is the mission was the particle storm, and he did not really have an option to say no. So with knowledge of what was actually holding him back, he did go full power to observe the particle storm, even with his own death predicted. But even the certainty of his death managed to be overturned because of the bond he developed with Shune, and he was allowed to be saved just in time to agree to be part of the tournament. And that was his involvement for the season, us having a civilian wandering around as the framework for later episodes. But all we did get with the detective, his relationship with his assistant, and his willingness to sacrifice himself, all put him on the top rungs for me. And with his connection to the Obsidian Eye, hopefully he'll be in a main position when Season 3 eventually rolls around. Speaking of, next we have Linaris the Obsedian, a personal favorite of mine. So we learn in the episode about the Obsidian Eye, the organization working against the kingdom and probably one of its greatest threats, considering how lackluster every other potential rival is as far as we have seen. We also learned that our detective and our informant from last season were former members, left on their own after the group supposedly was crushed. And the episode was done wonderfully. You see how this one man was manipulated by the girl who, surprise, was Linaris, about the cat and the mouse game in order for the government to take her out, while she infected a guy, and then proceeded later to show that she found a way to make her blood an aerosol, and made the fact that she can control people who have her blood more deadly. And bonus points for all members of the Obsidian Eye. Do we get anything about any of them? No. Are we likely going to get any real information about them? No. Then I promise I was not doing side characters. Come on, man. I just want to see cool characters do something cool. Is that so much to ask? Is having the other members of the group actually be a threat before this is over asking too much? But Then we reached a glaring issue with the organization and Linaris, which is the same problem with the rest of the season. Nothing really happened with them. Sure, they referenced that they knew why the particle storm was doing what it did. Yes, they made vague threats to our detective in the last episode. But the problem with so many characters and not enough progress, at this point Linaris are just a vague cool villain with a faction as opposed to a fleshed out threat. And well, what they are doing with the formula scenes, we get Maximum Menace, but do we truly get to know her or any of her men? As much as I like our vampire maiden, I have nothing really to say about her except that she is cool. But in exchange, she traded that for a chance to be fully characterized this season. Maybe next season, but I'll put that one aside for now. Next, we have one of the characters who we were given the most of this season, Toru the Awful, or the successor to Toru the Awful, considering how much we focus in pointing out that Toru being a fake. There is some chance the other one might have been the first and not some long bloodline, but whether for several generations or one, Toru lives up to the name. While there was room for debate, Toru is one of the best backgrounds given of the characters this season. Toru the Awful exists because magic swords exist. These weapons are such destructive objects that anyone who gets their hands on them causes mass destruction. So Toru exists for two reasons: to collect magic swords, to keep them out of the way of those who would abuse them, and to cause bloodshed every now and then, so people never forget the fear that they should show those weapons. Well, that sounds like the perfect price for the Star Runner now, does it not? So the Star Runner takes the magic sword and kills the original. However, the son, who was training, takes the cloak and the swords and continues the legend, both starting a journey to recover the magic swords and spread the fear. A journey which brings him into conflict with the next person we are speaking of, Mestelexil, the box of desperate knowledge, and to the tournament to hopefully face the Star Runner. But what makes Toru a strong competitor is the magic swords. We have seen 3 large battles, 4 if you count the flashback against the Star Runner, and through them we have seen a variety of powerful blades. And the best part is we still have plenty of swords worn across his body, and we'll likely see incredible blades in the future. Look, as a collector myself, I am a sucker for a collection, and Toru has the benefit of having the main focus of these episodes. Potentially the second most, would have to count if against the detective screen time, but regardless, Toru is a living legend among living legends. I look forward to seeing what the dwarf pulls next. In the same episode, we find ourselves with Mestelexil, the box of desperate knowledge, and with them their mother, Kiyazuna the Axel, the only non-Ishura I'll be talking on today, because you cannot truly talk on one without the other. Mestelexil is an interesting creation, being made of a golem and a homunculus. The golem automatically resurrects the homunculus automatically resurrects the golem. The two cannot be killed at the same time, and finally they are programmed with weaponry from our world, all building to a deadly combination. And of course, outside of Mestelexil himself, we also have the creator, Kiyazuna the Axel. Formerly ruling a kingdom, which we know nothing about, Kiyazuna built Mestelexil for the sole purpose of defeating the one who destroyed it. Apparently, the particle storm, the only time the particle storm was truly relevant. Overall, she is a fun part of the show, a genius who thinks highly of herself, and always has a kind word for her son. But either way, we are given 2 battles involving Mestelexil, the one against other artificial creations, and the one against Toru the Awful, which turned into a fight against the particle storm. And both fights we are able to see their powers on full display, but they hardly give us anything, personality-wise. Okay, I get it, recent sentience is, if sentient at all, but that overall works to its detriment. Sure, they can do cool things, and their main gimmick leads them to just charge in and use weapons, and spend the entire time laughing at it like a child in an amusement park. But overall, Mestelexil is an interesting addition as well as the mom. But they are straightforward in a show where they are at least try to give some backstory to all characters, even those we only get a portion of an episode for. Mestelexil was part of the only actual battle this season and was the most forgettable part of it. Here's hoping some growth before one of the Ishura plots convenience themselves past the invincibility. At the halfway point, we find ourselves with Rosclay the Absolute, the shining hero of the Empire itself, the weapon with which it will win over all other Ishura, and prove that he is a true hero who all in the kingdom shall remember. And in actuality, he is a sham. Him connected to items which allow casters elsewhere to cast spells which look like they originate from him. In truth, he seems to be a decently strong fighter, but not on the level of the monsters we are seeing elsewhere. He is here not as a monster to be exterminated, but a loyal soldier to be rewarded. But we also see his interactions with a girl. Are they his girlfriend, just a friend? Well, they did not spend any time telling us, so who knows. Anyways, it seems like Rosclay is doing all this for her. Maybe. Truly, the interaction between the two was kind of empty and told us nothing of the characters, so as much as they want us to gain sympathy for Rosclay for this scene, at this time it means nothing. So again, a character undercut by having no time to invest in their personal interactions. That said, comment-wise, Rosclay is impressive and will give, well, honestly only half of the Ishura a hard time. But with the backing of the Empire and whatever dirty tricks they are able to slip in, I'm sure they'll find a way to keep any fight he is part of interesting. Now we have Lucnoca the White, the dragon atop the frozen wastelands, even if the character looks too feathery to not be a Kirin, but whatever. Apparently, winter is a fun concept in this world, so a creature pure cold goes a long way to show the true danger of ice. We get to see her as the Yanel warrior come to claim her head to prove their glory, only to swiftly wipe the floor of them. If she did not have her own general from the first season, the guy would just be another one dead, and the dragon will continue her eternal roost, instead of arriving at the tournament. Speaking of which, we also are given her backstory, where she has faced countless opponents coming to her domain just to slay a dragon, only to be crushed in the prime of their lives. She is bird of easy victories, she has, wanting the challenge of a possible death, and the tournament is just the place to potentially find it. All in all, the story of Lucnoca the Winter is simple, but having an invincible wall to show off the power of ice is welcome. I can already tell you she is not getting that far, unfortunately, but her fights would definitely be a treat. And in the second half of the episode, we find ourselves in another interesting entry. Pianop, the Inexhaustible Stagnation. A slime which was originally part of the first party, but first to be left behind. In answer to being abandoned, they spent decades in a dungeon, studying and mastering their combat skills until the time they emerged in the middle of the Beastman's village, quickly showing how skilled they are in combat. Then, when given a chance, he also faced off against his old friend from the first party, where he showed himself able to take him down at his full power. Now his fight continues. His goal is to show that he is a fighter who would have been worthy of facing a true demon lord. And to do that, he is entering the tournament, both to try to fight the true hero and prove themselves against all other show in the tournament. Overall, it is simple story-wise, but for all competitors, we need at least one character who is the Ryu, the one who is just in it for a fight, but is not the Willow Sword, also only in it to fight. And the box of desperate knowledge. I mean, Pianop is the clearest expression of all this, but we will need to see how many of this mirrors the relationship with the other Blood Knights, and whether he will be able to make any standout impression. Now, the next one is actually one I want to talk about a bit, because it was one of the best single episodes we were given outside of the City 9. Uhak the Silent, the ogre who is born apart from the magic of this world, with the inability to speak and a gentle nature. We are first introduced to a nameless troll out in the ice fields, animals which normally would be prey casually standing around it, and it consuming nuts. Our priestess, despite her trauma with trolls, decides to place her trust in her god, see this as a sign, and begin to socialize the troll. Which at this point I'm not sure why they gave a past trauma with trolls if they were just going to amount to nothing, but we are not here for the priestess, so let's skip that part. At first, as you would expect, the villagers are hesitant to accept the creature as one of their own. But as time goes on, trust grows, and we finally reach a point where the villagers now believe in Uhak, and we are on our way to a happy ending. But that's not what we're here for, now is it? One day, the gentle giant brings a baby fox home, handling it as gently as possible. And the priestess, seeing the young predator, without a second thought, takes it behind a church to beat it to death. After all of speeches of how Uhak is a monster, how Uhak is the one who needs to learn what it means to be civilized, it is one of the civilized who spills blood first. And the best part is, the priestess does not even understand what she did, because it is common sense. Why would anyone believe anything was wrong? Then, when one of the creatures still wrapped in madness at the true demon lord stumbles into the village, they cause destruction without realization or intent. So it is Uhak who appears, and it is Uhak who does what he was shown, to put the poor creature out of its misery by beating it to a bloody pulp, just like the priestess told him was correct and just. Just before he takes one step further and has him start devouring the corpse, despite earlier avoiding eating meat. But this is where the clear distinction is drawn. He will only eat meat if he kills it. Which, from my end, is the same as my personal morals. As a hunter, I agree not to just kill for sport or for trophy, but for substance. In the cycle of life, it is necessary to kill some creatures, as overpopulation causes as much damage as overkilling. While I would not begrudge people on either side of the argument, it is impossible for us to completely remove ourselves from the cycle. And seeing that represented does give me a connection with Uhak. From there, though, things play out as one would expect. The villagers, as opposed to turning on Uhak of their own rationale, instead go mad from the magical unexplained fear of the demon lord, and then turn on him because just having humans be humans was apparently not enough. He, immune to the madness as well, fights. His mentor dies due to the actions of humans, but because of his attachment from everything, we see no reaction to this. And an unrelated general gives him an invitation to the tournament, and we get no further characterization for either. There was so much I liked with Uhak in this arc, but on the other hand, it was around this arc we were giving clear evidence of the lack of progress we were getting this season, and how repetitive these invitations have been getting. I like Uhak and overall how he is currently one of the only competitors who can take on the World War. But that does not excuse us ending up nowhere in the end. Not to get repetitive myself, but Season 3 has a lot of weight to carry at this point. Now, one which I really want to talk about is Kazuki the Blacktone. A visitor like some of the Eddas we previously met, she fights with both a gun, her existence being where guns in the world originally came from, as well as singing during a fight. Straight up, loved her. Sure, not the biggest fan of guns as opposed to blades, but the singing, oh, the singing. To see her just running around the battlefield, taking out as many mercenaries as she could, all while singing her own battle theme, chef's kiss. She was already on the road to be in my top 3 this season, if not the very top. And then she became one of the only Ishura to actually die this season, because when this show gives me what I want, it is at the cost of characters I actually enjoyed. But man, even dying, the quick deflection going into the stab to her name being cut in half, revealing the sound slicer, expertly done on the part of the design team, no matter how much that one hurt me. So, in conclusion, Kazuki is a character done well. Death done well. Utterly disrespectful to do that on the episode she premiered, but I get it. Decoy protagonist and all. Still, the absolute banger takes us. She was an absolute banger who is taken from us all too soon. Which, while we are here, we have one returning Ishura from the first season. Shulk the Sound Slicer, or skeletal mercenary, who is wandering to find out who he is. Instead of going to the final land like he left off for in Season 1, he ended up in the City of Mercenaries and is looking to join the tournament like everyone else. We get more information on the Sound Slicer today with his final goal, on finding out who he is. We saw him looking for information on the final land last season, but this season we get confirmation that he is looking at the possibility he is a true hero skeleton, and is trying to find out all he can. On the other end, he is too scared to actually go to the final land to confirm directly, so he has been hanging out in the mercenary city. Which, fair, if you have a large legacy like that, one would be hard-pressed to live up to it. But on the other hand, seems a bit hand-wavy, in a way to get him out of the last battle last season while still having everything in place for him to join the actual tournament. Just saying. But he made an excellent showing this season, even if just for one battle. He took on a top-ranked competitor and literally sliced through both her and her introduction. Which again, kind of disappointing. It was one who I was finding so interesting, but after how he did in his fights in Season 1, I was still entertained to see him turn the fight around as much. So, short showing this season, but pretty impactful. On the other hand, I am not sure with how short we were on time with everything else we needed an episode on someone we already knew of, stealing spotlight from someone who will not matter in the long run, but for what it was a good showing on of why he does deserve the airtime. Now we have one of the episodes Now we have one who has an episode himself, so really anything worth it except for a few scenes of dialogue, which is a shame because this was a design which constantly stuck me. That's right, it's the Handsworth himself, Ozonezma the Capricious. So we have the coolest design appear in a flashback in one episode. Met another fool who was trying to kill Demon Lord, and he did little at the time. We also had him appear in the retinue of Hiroto the Paradox, being one of the warriors who he is entering into competition. At this time we get a little more about him, except he is apparently a medic, which was not exactly a class I was going to guess with his handy design, but okay. Ozonezma was one of my most rated characters, and I was given nothing. Of all the characters this season, Ozonezma is the greatest example of a character who is given nothing, just being on the sidelines as everyone else did something. To the point I do not even think Season 3 will be able to save all of the race's potential. We are getting to the end, so let's move on to the magic. Yeah, I have nothing. We have this character come out of literally nowhere to fight, show that she is immune to conventional attacks, hide what species she is, and just have her join the tournament. I mean, what am I going to do with that? What am I supposed to say? Speculate on her with the bloating of the cast? Not in life, pal. 2 may be important in the future, but I'm here today to review what they have done. And with how dreadful the show has dragged its feet this season, you would expect me to have anything more speculating. Nope. 2 is an empty character until established otherwise. Shelved for later. And for our last edition, we have Hiroto the Paradox. One last human from the alternate world, Hiroto had not shown any powers when it comes to combat. However, when it comes to speaking and when it comes to politics, so far the man stands unmatched. We first see him dipping into the story a few points, but we do not see him as full potential at first. Here he was making small talk affairs at Ishura instead of making deals. It was not until much later we were able to see why he should be feared. That was his self-titled episode where he managed to take over a city without fighting a bullet. He took a platform to talk to the town and used it to reveal he seemingly had an empire of demi-humans, specifically goblins that we see, and they used his knowledge of the other world in order to create the guns which had been on the market, something which was a little Chekhov's gun in several episodes. Then he acts like he already made a deal with the leader of the city, and with promises of glory, makes it so that there was no other path to be taken but the deal. Then he plays another trick, managing to force his way into the tournament by taking out a group of hunted by the kingdom, and doing it in a way that makes it seem certain that one of the ministers did hire them, all in a masterful ploy to force an answer he wanted. And the best part, he did not even join the tournament, instead giving the 2 open slots to some of his allies that he trusts the most. What truly makes the Paradox such a treat is how much he knows. He knows of this world and he knows of the other world. He knows the key players of the plot and is able to manipulate them to reach the outcome he wants. If we are being fully honest, Hiroto the Paradox is the most dangerous being who somehow still did not end up being part of the tournament. And that is everyone who is important this season. Again, in summation, we spend a season dragging our feet and never even getting to the fight promised to us. Here's hoping Season 3 will finally bring closure, but for now we move on to other shows I still owe a lot of final views of, and ones which are most satisfying to watch, so see you then.